It's late at night, you're scrolling on LinkedIn, and see that a former colleague just took a senior director role at a company that you respect. So you see the announcement and you think, I could do that job. I've been doing a version of it for 3 years. So you open up a new message to congratulate them and ask them how they made the move. And then something pulls you back. A voice in the back of your head. What do I even say? Congrats? Take me with you? What if they realize that I'm not in the same league as them? What if my last promotion was just lucky timing? So you close the message. You tell yourself that you're going to send it tomorrow, and tomorrow turns into next week, and next week turns into another year or so, watching your career stay exactly where it is. If you tend to listen to that voice, this video is for you. Today, I'm going to break down imposter syndrome and how to overcome it as an engineering leader. If you're new here and you're a technology leader, hit subscribe and tap the bell. I put out videos every other week specifically for engineering leaders navigating their career at the director level and beyond. My name is Ryan Stoltzfus and I'm the founder of the Job Hackers Network. I've worked with over 300 engineering leaders in tech to help them land roles at companies like Microsoft, Qualcomm, NVIDIA, and Amazon. Before starting the Job Hackers Network, I spent years as a director of HR at Booking.com and at ADP, where I hired and I promoted hundreds of leaders. And here's what I can tell you after sitting on both sides of the table. The leaders who hesitate the most are often the most qualified people in the room. The ones who think that they're not quite ready are usually the ones who are already doing the work. In today's video, we're going to cover an important reframe about imposter syndrome, why engineering leaders feel it more than most, and 4 specific strategies that I teach my clients to silence that internal critic and to step into their next role with real confidence. Okay, let's get into it. I want to start with a reframe that will completely shift how you think about imposter syndrome. Most of the advice that you find online, it treats it like it's a disease and you need a cure. But I want to argue the opposite, because imposter syndrome, it hits the hardest when you actually know what you're doing. It's not the feeling of being lost, it's the feeling of uncertainty that shows up when you've been at this long enough to see how big the space really is and how much of it you're still figuring out. So when a director of engineering tells me that they feel like a fraud, my first reaction isn't concern. This tells me that they're paying attention. It tells me that they're doing the real work. The leaders who don't feel any of this, they're usually the ones who should be feeling it. If you've been feeling a little shaky lately, that feeling is evidence that you've grown. Now we just need to translate that growth into confidence. There's something specific about engineering leaders that makes imposter syndrome hit a little bit harder, right? And until you name it, you can't fix it. You came up as an engineer. This means you came up in a world that rewarded precision, accuracy, and shared credit. You learned early that nothing real gets built by one person. Every product you shipped, every system you architected, every outage you fixed, it was in a team effort. So now you're at the director level or above. And when you're asked to tell your stories in an interview, on a resume, or to your network, something feels off. You start describing the impact that you drove, and a voice inside says this. Wait, I didn't do that alone. I had a team of 50 people. Am I taking too much credit? Is this a lie? One of my clients, Dory, who's a director of software engineering, she said it perfectly. Ryan, when I tell these stories, I feel a little bit like a fraud because nobody does anything by themselves. And she's right. Nobody does anything by themselves. But here's the truth that you have to internalize. You're not claiming credit for the team's work. You're claiming credit for the leadership that made the team's work possible. Without you, that initiative wouldn't have launched. Without you, that team wouldn't have aligned. Without you, that platform wouldn't have scaled. At this level, your stories aren't about the building. They're about the leading. Now, once you make that distinction, the fraud feeling starts to loosen. And then we can layer in the strategies to manage imposter syndrome. The single most powerful exercise that I take every client through and the foundation of how we kill imposter syndrome is a strengths-based reevaluation. Most engineering leaders, they go through their career fixing weaknesses. You got development feedback in your last performance review and you went and worked on it, right? You fixed it. You weren't great at executive communication, so you took a course. You weren't great at managing up, so you read a book. Now, that's a noble approach, but it leaves you with a real distorted picture of yourself because you spend all of your mental energy on what you're not good at. You forget where you actually are good, where you're exemplary. Strengths-based reevaluation means stepping back and looking at your career objectively. What patterns do you see? Where have you consistently delivered? What kinds of problems do you solve so naturally that you don't even notice that you're solving them? One of my clients, Erin, who's a senior director, she spent 15 years at one company, climbing the corporate ladder. When she realized she needed to make a move, the thought was completely overwhelming. Her entire professional network was at one company. She wasn't getting hits on her resume, and the imposter syndrome started to really set in. What changed for her wasn't a new resume or acquiring new skills. What really made the difference was the work that we did together for her to clearly see her own value. As she went through the Job Hackers method, her confidence grew because she developed a stronger sense of self. She learned how to articulate her value through her resume, her LinkedIn profile, and in networking conversations. And within 3 months of working together, she had an offer on the table, and a month later, she was starting her new role with a 25% increase in total compensation. This transformation, it didn't come from new skills. It came from finally seeing the value in skills that she already had. Imposter syndrome is, at its core, an evidence problem. Your brain is making a claim. I'm not good enough. And you're accepting that claim without rebuttal. The antidote is to gather your own evidence. And the way that you do that is by building out a portfolio of 7 to 10 career stories that you know inside and out. Now, these aren't just bullet points on a resume. They're the moments when you delivered your absolute best impact. The turnaround that you led when the platform was failing. The acquisition that you integrated. The team that you rebuilt after a layoff. The product launch that doubled revenue. And you want to structure them using the SAR framework, situation, action, and result. I've got a deeper breakdown of how to apply this framework in another video, and I'll link that down below in the description for easy access. Now, when you develop your stories in this way, something incredible happens. One of my clients, Matt, who is a systems engineer, he built his stories portfolio, and during a coaching call, he shared this emphatically. Holy smokes, I've done all of this in my career? And that's the moment. That's when the evidence starts to outweigh the noise, and you get it. Because here's what I want you to understand. Your stories represent proof. Proof that you've done the work. Proof that you've delivered. And if you did those things in the past, it's reasonable for anyone, including yourself, to believe that you can do it in the future. Your stories give you a foundation of confidence so that no matter what question someone throws to you in an interview, in a networking conversation, in a board meeting, you have evidence ready to deploy. The third strategy is to create your value proposition. Now, I gotta be honest with you, this is where most engineering leaders fall apart, and it's where the biggest confidence breakthrough lives. A value proposition is a clear, compelling 1 to 2 sentence statement of what you bring to the table. Not your job title, not your years of experience, but the specific, repeatable, tangible value that you deliver to an organization. When you don't have a clear value proposition, every conversation becomes exhausting. It's like you're pushing a boulder uphill. Someone asks, "Tell me about yourself." And you reach for a vague description of your last role. Someone asks, "Why should we hire you?" And you mumble something about being a strong leader. Compare that to the leader who can say with complete clarity, "I scaled engineering organizations through periods of hypergrowth. I've done it 3 times, and every time we've delivered on schedule while increasing team retention." That leader isn't guessing. That leader is anchored. One of my clients, Andrew, who is a VP of development, he told me this. After creating the value proposition, I started presenting myself so well. Everything in there is true. And polishing the diamond made a huge difference in my motivation and how I see myself. That's the power of a value proposition. It's not marketing fluff. It's a mirror that finally reflects the value that's been there all along. If you want the details on how to craft an effective value proposition, then download my free template. It's going to be linked in the description below. The final strategy is one of the most overlooked, and it's based on the principle that who you spend time with shapes how you see yourself. If you're a director of engineering and the only people that you talk about your career with are family members who don't fully understand what you do, you're going to get distorted feedback. They love you, but they can't mirror back to you the actual value that you bring to the executive table, right? You need to be in conversation with peers, people who are at your level or above, people who can hear your story and reflect it back to you. This is one of the reasons why community matters so much. One of my clients, Sunjit, a chief of digital transformation, he told me that being in the Job Hackers community, a network with over 300 senior leaders, it helped him understand what his peers are seeing in the market. It gave him a sense of pacing. It validated what he was experiencing. And it ultimately helped him show up to conversations with vision and with purpose. So if you've been trying to fight imposter syndrome in isolation, that's part of the problem. Find your peers. Get in rooms with other senior leaders. Let them mirror back your value. I want to leave you with one more thought. A lot of leaders, they think that confidence is something that you either have or you don't, like it's a personality trait. Well, it's not. Confidence is a byproduct of preparation, clarity, and evidence. It's what happens after you've done the work of seeing yourself accurately. Every great director and VP that I've ever worked with has faced moments of serious doubt. They've all had nights where they wondered if their last promotion was a fluke. They've all had moments before a big interview where their stomach dropped. What separates them isn't the absence of doubt. It's their ability to own their story, to showcase their value, and rise to the moment anyway. If you've made it to the director level or above, you belong in that seat at that table. Now your job is to make sure that you sound like you belong, to yourself first, and then to everyone else. So before I close, here's something concrete to do this week, because nothing changes without action. So here's your assignment. Open a blank document or a notepad. Write down 3 career stories, just 3, the biggest, most impactful moments of your last 2 roles. For each one, write the situation or context, the action you specifically took, and the business outcome, and it needs to be a quantifiable result. That's it, 3 stories, 30 minutes. I guarantee you that by the time you finish that exercise, you're going to look at that document and think exactly what my client said. Holy smokes, I've done all this? That's where imposter syndrome starts to shrink. Not in a mantra, in evidence. Are you realizing that your confidence problem isn't actually a confidence problem? That is exactly the work that we do inside of the Job Hackers Network. And if you want to walk through the process with me directly, then book a strategy session. The link is in the description below. We'll talk about the process. If this video helped you reframe how you're thinking about imposter syndrome, then hit the like button. It helps more engineering leaders find this content. And in the comments, I'd love to hear, what's the first career story that you're going to write down this week? Drop that story down below. Now, be sure to watch these videos next for more actionable strategies on advancing your career as an engineering and tech leader. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.